Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your flagship Gersnet Weekly Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Rates, Sunday the 1st of December, and we're here to talk all things Rangers. This is the independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans, and all of our content is absolutely free. You can get us over at gersnet.co.uk, where you can get access to our forum, some great articles, and a wonderful history archive as well. And you can get us over at Twitter at Gersnet Online. Also got the podcast here on YouTube and all of your usual podcast providers as well. Which today's pod will be out on in the coming hours. Just before I introduce my guest as well, I need to bring a message from our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years. We're absolutely delighted that they're backing our podcast. You can get them over at forrestprecisioneng.com, and you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Joined today by Mr. Alan Rogers. Alan, how you doing? You got your Christmas decorations up yet? And it's the 1st of December.
I'm not even joking, mate, when I say my wife put the Christmas decorations outside the house a week ago. That includes an inflatable Santa and a projector that projects like snowflakes onto the house. She claims it's for the kids, but...
See, to be honest, that actually sounds quite good. You might be in like one of these sort of street competitions, like for the best thing with house or something.
I think secretly that's what she's angling for. She just won't admit it. But she'll need to invest significantly more money in it. But no, they do look nice, and the kids do like them, so fine. But yeah, we are that family in the street that've got the decorations up already. I'm sorry to say.
Well, at least you're not one of the ones that has them up before Halloween. But you can never know if you win that competition, it might put an extra zero on the house value. So, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't complain.
Every cloud and all that. Obviously here to discuss today's victory over St Johnstone, mate. We'll go in just with the starting 11. I was pleasantly surprised with it. I think he made the changes from last week's lineup against Dundee United that he should have made. Egeman kept his place after his terrific performance on Thursday. Hadji came in as a number 10, not playing Diamande in that role again. I was at first disappointed to see Tav start, but then I realised Stelling was on the bench. I went, he must be injured again, so you couldn't really pick anyone else. But to be fair to Tav, I thought he actually played really well today, probably his best game of the season. But what about you in terms of the starting 11? Were you happy with it?
Yeah, I was pretty happy to see it. You know, December is always a really difficult month in terms of the fixture list, the volume of fixtures and how quickly they come around. So we're always going to have to use the squad this month. And after, again, a tough away trip in Europe and obviously travel and everything else, and then what had banana skin written all over it. You know, this kind of 12 o'clock kickoff's bad enough, but 12 o'clock kickoff on the Sunday after a European away trip, there's a lot of red flags there. So I fully expected the managers to make changes to the 11. And when I saw it, again, I know we've touched on it before and you mentioned it there. You know, I just think Tab's demise is really over-egged. You know, he's on the decline. Of course he is. He's age 33. But see, for running-the-mill SPL games, he's absolutely fine. He's absolutely fine. We saw it on Thursday when he came on. He put one on a plate for Dessers. He put one on a plate for Barami today. You know, we had a decent free kick. The keeper saved. You know, he's still capable of doing this at SPL level. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So I didn't really have a problem with Tab coming in. And bringing Hadji back was really good to see. You know, Hadji's first start in 18 months or something like that. First league start of 18 months. So I was really pleased with the lineup and also pleased to see Egeman keep his place because he has to learn. You know, it's one of these things with players coming into Rangers. They've got to adapt to Rangers and the pressures and the nature of Scottish football, but they've also got to adapt to playing, 3 games every 8 days. A lot of players aren't used to that. They just don't have that schedule and have never had that schedule. So they've got to get into the rhythm of those things. And I think that perhaps is some of the thinking behind Clement, keeping guys like Egeman in the team. I think most people probably expected Danilo to start today. But keep Egeman in and try and get him used to that schedule because we're going to need our full squad for this next 6-week period. Because it's going to be absolutely crucial if there's to be anything salvaged from this season.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. In terms of the start of the game, then I felt St Johnstone started the better team and quite rightly the first sort of 10-15 minutes. We didn't really look at it like we haven't in most first halves this season, never mind the ones after European games. We seem to have this thing this season in domestic games anyway, where we just seem to be absolutely rubbish in first halves. I don't think today's first half was the worst first half that we've played this season. We still created some decent enough chances, but we're much better in the second half again. I mean, why is that? Can you put your finger on it? I don't know what it is, because we keep hearing maybe it could be the European thing. That's all well and good, but then we're also doing it in games where we've not played on the Thursday, or we've had a bigger rest, like maybe the St Johnstone game at Ibrox, where that was an 8 o'clock kickoff. We played at 5, I think, on the Thursday. So, I just don't understand why we seem to be starting games so slowly this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might just be a confidence thing. The team are fragile at the moment. The fans are on edge, and they wouldn't be human if they weren't coming out the tunnel thinking, right, if we lose the first goal here, the pressure is going to just snowball, and the fans are going to get edgy, and they're going to get on our backs and everything like that. I mean, I think it's just a wee bit of a perfect storm at the moment, just in terms of the team coming out and how they start and approach games. And I think they like coming out and starting a wee bit slower, getting to grips with it, getting settled in, seeing how the opposition are doing and everything like that. And I can kind of understand the slow starts, because in a way it doesn't really make sense. You think if you're tired after Europe, you would be able to start better and then you would fade more quickly. Whereas this team seems to do the opposite, that they start really badly and then they get a grip on it and come into it more in the second half, as you say. So I think it's just a mentality thing, a confidence thing, that we're just not at that point whereby we know we're going to win these games. We had it during the season, we won 55. We were going into games knowing we're going to win. We're going to win this, it's fine. And nobody was really nervous about it. Whereas because of the way the squad is at the minute, the way the fans are, and the way the manager's perceived, there's an inherent nervousness. And I think that translates onto the pitch very often at the start of games when we don't quite know what we're facing. Because as well, when we saw St Johnstone's lineup today, St Johnstone were quite attacking. I think we did get deeper as the game went on, but certainly their lineup, they could make an argument, say they're essentially playing sort of 2 up front with a 10. So they didn't really sit back like a lot of teams would do. And maybe we were just a wee bit cautious with that to see, well, how exactly are they going to approach the game? Because they did have a big pacey front man up front. It did cause us 1 or 2 problems, but didn't really threaten goal. But so I can understand there's a natural caution there just to sit back a wee bit and just let the game breathe a bit before you really try and up the gears. And I don't have a problem with that, providing it works as it did today.
Yeah, I don't really mind it either. Sometimes, I mean, you do get the people out there that want us to play a specific way and maybe think that we should just go and play that way from the first second of the game. But you see it in England now with Pep Guardiola and Man City. He's never won at Anfield. You see his record earlier today, and I actually couldn't believe it. But I think Gary Neville was the one that's saying that he doesn't change anything. So why would you expect anything different when you go to the same stadium? So I actually think it's maybe quite clever sometimes. Although, in saying that, people would also make the argument that it's St Johnstone and we should probably have the confidence to come out and play a certain way. But it is what it is.
I mean, I certainly think in an ideal world we would. In an ideal world we should be winning that game comfortably. But it's just the reality with where the team is at the minute. There is no confidence in the team, not really. And you need to build that. You need to build confidence, build momentum. We've got a really good result on Thursday. Coming in today, we've got, again, potential banana skin. I'll take 1-0 every day of the week in a fixture like that. So fine. So, as it builds up, you hope that as the results come, the team gains more confidence, gets more settled, and maybe just has that belief to start games more quickly. Because it'd be lovely to go in at 3-0 up as we did on Thursday night in a domestic game, because you're actually enjoying it and you can relax a wee bit. But I can't remember the last time we did that in a domestic game, 3-0 at half time. But one of these days, let's hope it happens at some point soon.
Well, hopefully, but even then, I know everyone says it, but St Johnstone is genuinely for us a tough place to go. I don't actually remember any good games being played up there. So 1-0 seems to be the sort of the prerequisite scoreline that we always seem to get there. It's either 1-0 or 3-0, and the 3-0, the goals always seem to come quite late on. If that happens, it's quite weird. But aye, that is what it is in that respect. Robin Proper, just want to mention him actually. Came off, I think, slightly injured. Maybe it was performance. I don't think he done very well today at all. I think the big striker that you were talking about, if he was giving anyone issues, he was giving Proper issues. We had him sort of making comments the last week or two about him still trying to get used to Scottish football, which is, you know, I want to be positive and give guys the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, he's been here for 4 or 5 months now. He's like 30 years old. He was the captain of a decent Dutch team, so he should be used to it by now. We're not talking about like a young guy here. For me, that is a concern. And I thought he was decent enough on Thursday, but maybe he's just one of these guys that, you know, he can play okay in Europe, but he can't do it in Scotland. And, you know, we brought Balogun on in the second half and they looked far more comfortable, and St Johnstone just didn't look like scoring at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about Proper on this podcast before, you know, and a lot of time at Rangers, we are guilty of writing players off too early. We've seen it plenty of times over the years where players do take 6 months, maybe even a season to settle in and show their true form. On the flip side, there are certain players you see almost straight away and you just think, I don't fancy this one. And quite often you're right in that assessment. And I think with Proper, he probably falls into the latter category. He just doesn't look comfortable in the game. There was one moment in the second half today where he misjudged a bouncing ball and it just bounced straight over his head. And, you know, the St Johnstone player was through. Sorry, it must have been first half, in fact. You know, that's nothing to do with Scottish football. That's just basics. You know, that's just reading the flight, reading the bounce, and just getting it hideously wrong. And those are the kind of things that stick in the mind of fans. Because certainly in Scotland, we love the Marvin Andrews style. Just gets up, heats it out, doesn't hesitate. You know, put it rose ed if you need to put it out. We love that kind of stuff up here. And there's certainly room in Europe for that kind of nice, on the ball playing centre half that's got a nice left foot and decent range of passing. But domestically, you know, midday Sunday kickoffs at McDermott Park against a team of, you know, big guys that are going to play with their elbows up. Sometimes you just need to be a big, tough centre half that's going to go and win the ball. And that's where Proper lacks. You know, he just doesn't have that physicality about him. But as I say, with that bouncing ball, he just poor reads, like things like that, are things that fans don't forget, and things that just look ostensibly bad to people watching the game. And it's difficult to get away with that kind of thing when it's happening consistently. It happened on Thursday, I should say. You know, on Thursday there was one point round about the centre half, round about the halfway line, he dived in and got turned really easily by the forward, and they got straight in behind him, and they didn't make anything of it. But I remember at the time thinking, "Oh, that was really rash." And I'm not saying defenders can never make mistakes. You know, we don't have players at that level; they're always going to make mistakes. But big things like that, just egregious errors that let the opposition in, you're going to remember. And for me, Proper just makes too many of those. That's before we get to, you know, slipping at the worst possible moment at Parkhead and losing the first goal. You know, things like that. Just nothing really seems to be going for him at the minute. So if we've got any money to spend in January, for me, a centre half would be pretty near the top of the shopping list, probably just behind a striker. But he did okay today. But, you know, we've always got to be careful with, you know, what you wish for. And a lot of people were pleased to see Conor Goldson depart the club because they thought he was at the end of his cycle. And I think that's a decent argument. But to replace him with someone like Proper, again, that's maybe 4, 5, 6 times he's come off injured during the game. You know, we compare that to how robust Goldson was for 95% of his Rangers career and how consistent he was. You know, we haven't really upgraded that position. We need to be honest about that. And it's at some cost as well, because although he's Proper will be cheaper in terms of his wages, we seemingly spent $2 million as a fee for him, and that doesn't seem like a great investment at this moment in time. And I suppose the acid test for a Rangers player is always, you know, if you're playing Celtic next week, and we are playing them pretty soon, would you put Proper in your starting lineup? And I think the vast majority of Rangers fans would say they would want Balogun in for a game like that.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. I think you're right about Goldson as well. I mean, I do think it was the right time for him to leave, but he's 10 times the player that Proper is. You know, there's a lot of similarities with Ben Davies from me and Proper, but I actually expected more from Proper. That's the thing. I think when we signed him on paper, it looked really, really good, and as if we were finally going to get that sort of centre half that could play with Sitter, but it's just not really happened for him so far. But, you know, you never know. He might be able to turn it around, but I can't see it. In terms of his partner, though, we'll try and be a bit more positive. I thought Sitter had an excellent game today, Alan. I think Neil McCann mentioned the word calm on commentary today, and I think that did sum up his performance. I do like Sitter, but the thing with him is he is prone to a mistake and it always seems to be that when he makes a mistake, it leads to a goal. So, that is always a caveat with John Souttar, but you've got to give him his credit at this moment in time. He's been fantastic. He's starting to become and grow into a leader on that pitch for me. And I thought all round he was excellent today.
Yeah, I mean, he was. Without a doubt, this is his best run he's had in a Rangers jersey. And it's perhaps no coincidence that that's coming when he's playing every week and he's playing on his preferred side as well. And just as the way Proper's profile his physical profile doesn't really seem to fit Scottish football, Souttar's the opposite. He's a big guy, he's a stocky guy, he's broad-shouldered. He's got that physical profile, but crucially, I think his reading of the game's improving as well. Again, he's prone to the odd gaff, usually with the ball at his feet. We just have to accept that from him. But there was a couple of times today he cut out dangerous balls going into the box by reading where it was going, and he was calm and he was assured. And as I say, he's really enjoying a decent run of form at the moment. I think if you were to look at the team at the moment, you've got Souttar playing really well, you've got Raskin playing really well, you've got Barron playing really well, and Czerny playing really well. There's something there, there's a nucleus there to work with in terms of players that are on form. It's just getting the best out of them, looking at the system, seeing who can slot in where and how we can adapt to just try and get more control of games and just try and get more bodies in the box. Because at the moment we still have that attacking instinct whereby, there was one instance today where Tav put a great ball into the box and it was like, one player attacking it. I mean, that's just not enough. At one point, Jeff Taylor took a great touch, got right to the byline, put it in, and there was nobody at the front post. Czerny was at the back post. There was no other Rangers player even near the box. And things like that are really frustrating. So there's some players that are contributing and doing well, but we just still need to tweak things, I think, to get the best out of them and to try and start putting games away.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you in that respect. We ended up getting the goal. I think it was the 63rd minute. Own goal by former player Jason Holt. Cheers for that, mate. But need to give Tavi's credit for that one. It's unofficially his goal. But the start padders kind of give him that one, unfortunately. But for me, this is Hagi. It's just a nothing hopeful ball. In fact, no, that seems nothing criticising, but it's not. I think Hagi knows exactly what he's doing there. He can see a space open up, and he's just went, I'm just going to put the ball there and see what happens. And to be quite honest, even if Holt or Tav isn't there to put the ball in, I actually think that's probably going to creep in anyway, and he's maybe lobbed the keeper. Hagi, somebody mentioned it earlier, he seems to have a level of intelligence that nobody else in our squad has in terms of on the ball and being able to see things and having the vision to make passes that no one else can see. And we've seen that the year we won the league a couple of years ago, where you get, I think, the most of us, maybe even ever, in the SPFL for one season. His contribution was immense in terms of the numbers that year. And he played his part again today. He got man of the match, I think, deservedly so. He done everything right up until he took a wee tumble at the end for a penalty, but I'm sure we can forgive him for that one. In terms of Hagi, how happy are you that he's back and contributing to this team? Because I'm pretty pleased we managed to resolve his issues.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a player for me that's got credit in bank, and I was keen to see him back. I expected him to leave in the summer, but as soon as it became clear he wasn't, then I thought it was just a case, well, we're paying him, so let's use him. And it was good to see him back in. And I thought he did okay. In and around the box, he is creative and he does have intelligence and he can spot passes. He threaded a few balls into the box today. Balls on the deck, balls into feet. That's what we need to see. Didn't really come off in terms of those passes, but he's trying things and he can see things and he can try and make angles. And that's where he can really contribute. And as you say, during the season we won the league, he was a huge contributor on the pitch. So if we can get him back to that some sort of form at that level, get his fitness back, then there's no doubt he can have a positive impact in the second half of the season. Absolutely no doubt about that. If we're going to stick with this 10, I should say, I hope we don't. I hope we look at things again. But if we're absolutely fixated on playing with a 10, I do think Hagi is probably our best option in there. I know people will say Barami should be playing in there, but at the moment, I think he's a wee bit out of sorts. Again, I wonder if he's the sort of player that's maybe suffering with the schedule a bit. So I would be tempted to give Hagi a run in that position. because he knows Scottish football and he's contributed there before and he's got a bit of experience now behind him. And I thought today you saw that with the goal. It was a good ball. He knows what he's doing with that. It's, as you say, he's not just flicked it and just having a stab at putting something across the box. He's put it to the back post because he knows there's a gap there. And if Holt isn't there to put it in, Tav's just going to bundle it in. So Holt didn't really have a choice but to at least make some sort of attempt at a clearance. So I thought it was good thinking from him. Again, it was Tav put a ball into the box in the second half straight to Hadji's feet. And it was one of those ones you just wanted him to hit it the first time. Just try and get it on target, hit the target early, as they say. And he didn't. He took a touch and he tried to, but then, he was expecting a foot in and he fell over. And it just, things just aren't quite falling for him at the moment. But given it's his first start in 18 months, or whatever it was, the first league starting in 18 months, you've got to cut him a little bit of slack because I thought he contributed well today. And if I see him again in the lineup on Wednesday for Kelly, I certainly wouldn't be disappointed.
Yeah, same here. I think what I really liked about him today was that moment in the first half where he went down with his sort of back injury, and we were about to bring Yilmaz on, and then at the sideline he's shouting over to the manager, I'm fine, I can continue on. And that should be a prerequisite anyway if you feel fine, continue on. But I think it's the fact that we've had that many players the last couple of years that have been injured and made of paper mache, that as soon as they feel a cramp or a touch on the foot, they just go down and, I'm not going to play for 6 months. So I think mentality-wise, that was something that I'd really like to see from Hadji today. And the fact that he played 90 minutes as well, it's great to get that under his belt. And in terms of Hamel Barami, I don't know. I mean, you've got Lawrence in there who, I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but to be fair to the guy, he's scored a few important goals for us this season and he is capable of doing things. But I'm always of the firm belief you need at least 2 good players for every position. So if you've got Barami, Hadji, Lawrence fighting it out for a number 10 position, we're still going to go for that system. It's 3 pretty good options to have with them.
I'll apply. I'll put you on the spot then. So if we had these 3 players fit, Lawrence, Barami, and Hadji for the cup final in a few weeks, who gets number 10
for the cup final? Probably Hadji, because he's the only guy in there that's actually got experience of beating Celtic.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. We've got Lawrence has played number 10 numerous times in Old Firm games. He's never won one.
He's been rubbish against Celtic.
And he's had his legs run off him and everything else. And he can't just keep persisting with the same nonsense. Now, don't get me wrong, Hadji's not blessed with pace, but I think he's got more intelligence in that sense. He's less of a goal threat than Lawrence, certainly. But I think he's more likely to have an impact in there. So, I suppose we should say, well, could Diamante play there as well? But for me, that's the same kind of idea as Lawrence. I don't think he's done enough in Old Firm games previously to be the 10. So again, we need to be bold with these things. We can't go into this cup final trying the same old nonsense that hasn't worked for Clement in 5 or 6 attempts he's had to beat Celtic and hasn't done it yet. We're going to have to try something new, and if that means new personnel, and if that means someone like Hadji getting his chance, then we should be doing that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. In terms of the game, then obviously we finished it off. It was 1-0, and it was comfortable in the end. I felt St Johnstone were never going to score. Let's be honest. I'm not actually sure they had one shot on target. Now that I think about it, so it was comfortable. The issue is though, when the game is 1-0, it doesn't matter how good or how bad the team that you're playing against has been. They can still always score. It's football. A goal can come out of absolutely nothing through a moment of genius, through a fluke. And we need to kill teams off. Why can we not kill teams off? I think it's not so much that we're not creating chances, because we have created chances. We just don't have any killers in that team, in my opinion, or very few. You look at Celtic yesterday, in the first half, 5 shots on target, 5 goals. They've got guys that when they create chances, most of the time they score them. We've got guys when you create chances, you need 2 or 3 of them to put them away. They're not taking shots first time. They're dilly-dallying on the ball. They're unsure of what to do. So for me, it's about having killers in that team that are just capable of putting the ball in the back of the net. But that's the most difficult thing to do in football.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's just about quality. It's just about quality in the final third. we don't have that killer instinct, and we don't have those players that reliably just finish. You saw we've seen it enough with Dessers, but that chance on Thursday night, again, Tav put it forward on a plate, really good shots in his chest, and just side foots it wide. I mean, I saw on Twitter that the XG of that chance was something like 0.97. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be being missed. And even today, there was one, Danilo had one, and sort of it might have been a foul, but the ref let it go, and he got clear in the box, straight in and hit it straight to the keeper. It's things like that. We just don't have that killer instinct. That's got to be going in the net. It's got to be. I mentioned the Hadji chance earlier. Great ball in from Tav. Hadji just has to smack that first time, try and keep it down low and make the keeper work. There's far too often that we're in positions like that, and it happened on Thursday as well. You've got to say clean through and go and not making the keeper work. We do it quite a lot, getting into the box, getting a promising chance, and whatever it is, we dilly-dally, or we try a chop inside, or we try an extra pass, or we pass it back out the box. We just don't have that quality in the box up front, which is really concerning, you've got to be honest. If Danilo's a 6 million player, Rigaman's 2 million, Dessers is 4 million, Barami's 3.5, we're spending money. You've got to ask, are we spending money wisely here in terms of the guaranteed output at the top of the pitch? Because as you say, that's key. That's the hardest thing to do. It's where you're going to have to spend the most money to try and get dependable players in that can do it week in, week out. And that's where Rangers have failed, really. I don't know what the goal difference is. It's like 25 or 26 or something like that between us and Celtic. And that speaks volumes as to how much more quality they have in the box. But you've also got to say their centre mids will contribute 10, 12 each over the course of a season. Our centre mids will get absolutely nowhere near that. And I think that speaks to something that I mentioned earlier on, with Tav with a good ball into the box, or Yefty with a good cut back in the box. There's next to nobody attacking it. 2, 3 absolute tops. Whereas that lot over the side would have 6 or 7 attacking that in and around the edge of the box, desperately looking for space. Whereas we never have that. We don't have those players busting a gut to get into the box. I always remember it because it was still of it on Twitter. And the game at Rugby Park that we lost. Early on, Cherny and Tav linked up really well down the right. Tav got free, put a ball into the box. Dessers was there behind the defence. But there was no other Rangers player within 30 yards of goal. And it wasn't a counter-attack. It was a build-up. They have to see it's coming. They have to gamble and get forward. But they were far too rigid and far too cautious. Again, I think that is informed by confidence a wee bit. But you have to gamble and get into the box. And we've got this, the midfield of kind of Diamande, Barron, Raskin. They've been performing relatively well, but are they consistent goal threats? Absolutely not. So if you're taking that out from the centre mid, then your front three, your 2 wingers and your striker carry an extraordinary burden to put the ball in the net for you. And okay, Igaman got a couple the other night. Dessers has got maybe 10. Bajrami's got a couple. Cherny's doing well, in fairness to him. So they've kind of been keeping it up, but it's just too much of a burden for them to bear in this schedule. You saw what happened when Cherny was out for the Aberdeen game at Pittodrie. We were so toothless up front, and we can't afford that. We can't afford that at all, because in terms of the goals, there was a stat today during the game where they said that Rangers games this season have all been the games with the fewest goals involved, both for Rangers and the opposition. So on one hand, you can look at that and say, well, actually, we're not conceding that many, but we're clearly not scoring that many either. And of course, if you're in a position whereby you're conceding the odd goal, it's no great shakes if you're scoring 3 or 4 every week. But we're not. We're struggling to score 1 every week. So as soon as you concede 1 goal, it can be absolutely fatal. And that's where we need to look at. So as much as we're all down in the defence and don't think it's a great defence, and I think that's true, the bigger problem is at the other end of the pitch. Because if you're 3-0 up and you lose a sloppy goal, nobody really cares. And it's 0-0 and you lose a sloppy goal, then it's the apocalypse. And that's where the problem lies. And I think a good part of that is just not having the quality at the top that can reliably finish those chances. And that's been a consistent problem for basically this season and last season, we've got to be honest. Even when you go back to Parkhead at the start of this season, a good ball into the box from Tav. Dessers does well to create space, and then Sklavs his finish. If that's them, if that's the other way around and that's them, they score that in the first minute and completely change the game. If we scored that, again, it completely changes the game. But these are the chances we just do not take. And that's a big, big problem for the manager.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. And I think it is the case that this season, when we concede first, we don't win. I don't think we actually have won a game. we came back last week against Dundee United to draw. We done it against Kiev away in Poland. I think they're the only two times that we've came back from being a goal down and managed to, get something from the game. And it's not good enough. The fact is right now with Rangers is we need to score first, because when we do score first, we go and win the game. I think actually we've won every game that we've scored first in this season. When we lose the first goal, we lose the game. I mean, it might seem simple, but to be quite honest, it is. It is that black and white this season. So,
but that's sorry to jump in, Craig, but I'm interested in your opinion on it. That when Hadji went down injured, right, in this first half, and he was on the lying on the deck, and he's coming off, and I saw it was Ridvan coming on. Right, I know the plan would be Ridvan goes left wing and Barami goes to number 10. But as soon as it happened, I was like, why not bring Danilo on? Why not just try and go two up top? It's the kind of game where I think you can get away with it. Just give us that extra threat in the box. Give a man some support. Give him someone a bit closer to him. Because we know Danilo's got good movement. I just desperate for him to try that. Just say, right, let's try something else that's not the 10. Let's just try and get two up top and try and create havoc in the box. So I was really disappointed when I saw it was Ridvan coming on. I know he didn't come on at that point. He came on at half time. But I just wonder, again, it's all about systems. I think we need to tweak this system to give these players the best possible chance. And people will say, well, you might give up some of the midfield, but to be honest, we give up a lot of the midfield anyway, even with the way we're playing. And if you've got extra goal threat, you can score more goals and things like that. These little things become less of an issue. And teams won't be expecting it. If they got suddenly we're playing with our front two, it gives them something to think about as well. Whereas at the moment, we're just really predictable in terms of how we're going to play and how we're going to approach things. So I think it all kind of feeds into this, just trying how do we get more goals into this team? Because we're not scored from a set piece this season, and we've not had a penalty this season. So we need to think of something else, and we just need to get better at creating goals on the pitch, and that means we need more people at the top end to finish them off.
No, you're right. I think predictable's the best word to use there, and the thing is that plays right into the opponent's hands. Because if the other teams get a half decent manager and sets up even half decently, then there's a chance that they can take something from the game. The thing that I don't understand about sort of Clement is that when he first came in and he had that brilliant run, there wasn't any talk about system or we're playing this way, we're playing that way. We adapted depending on who was the opponent. Quite simply, just get the ball forward and try and score as many goals as you can. And that's why I loved him at the start, because I think for me that is the best managers out there. The ones that I'm not one of these sort of football purist guys that you only need to play one way, and that's it. For me, the one way of playing is winning games and doing whatever you can to win games. It's a game of chess. You need to work out your opponent's move. You need to counteract them. You need to change things in the game as well. And at the start of his reign, Clement did seem to do that, and he got a reaction out of the players, and he played different types of football to suit the different type of opposition. But it just seems to be this season, he's playing this rigid system that's not changing, and it's so bloody boring to watch. And I'm trying to be positive, and as I say, I thought we were good today. Or maybe professional might be the best way to sum it up. It wasn't our worst performance of the season, and we deserved to win. But at the same time, it wasn't amazing either. But that's the thing. Is this size limits? Is that as good as we can play? I fear that might be the case. Maybe the quality of player isn't quite there yet. But at the same time as well, we've got guys on that part. I mean, the front four today, Egeman 2 million, Cherney cost Wolfsburg 7 million, Barami 3.5 million, Hadji was 3 million as well. You've got 3 international players there, guys that have played actually 3 guys that were playing at the Euros in the summer, and they can't break down St Johnstone's defence, and that's a massive worry.
Yeah, and again, it's interesting. It's always difficult for fans to understand why you can come up against a team like Nice, who I know they had lots of injuries, but it's still good quality in the pitch. And you've got like Diamandi who's confident enough to make runs beyond, and Sterling Fernie obviously scored and things like that. Diamandi didn't do that once when he came on the pitch today. I know the game was late on, but we just didn't have those runs beyond. We didn't have that confidence to sort of play into space and try and counter-attack. As I said right at the start, St Johnstone weren't that deep. It wasn't like They were just sitting back defending their box like some SPFL teams do. But we just didn't seem to have that confidence on the ball to really go at them and to really find the gaps. Again, is that just about work rate? Is it just about lack of movement? I don't know. But he needs to find a solution. I mean, I think with Clement, as you mentioned, when he came in, if people forget, when he came in and turned it all around, his centre-back pairing was Goulson and Balogun, and they were both playing really well. And Tav started playing really well too. He got that record for the high-scoring British defender, all that stuff. Cantwell was playing well. Lundstrom was excellent. When Clement first came in, everyone forgets that. And then obviously 6 weeks later, everyone just wants him binned. So we've got rid of all these guys that had some performance credit in the bank. And okay, it didn't work out that well. But we've replaced them with players that just haven't really ever hit that same sort of peak. And I just think that's where we're struggling at the moment. Just getting players up to consistently play to that kind of 8 out of 10 every week. Because they're playing really well on the Thursday night against a much better quality of opposition. And then coming up against, St Johnstone level players, they drop their level. As opposed to proving that they're better than them, they drop down to the opponent's level. Again, is that mentality? Is it confidence? A combination of things? I don't know. But as you say, it's incredibly frustrating to watch because we know we have a better squad than we're seeing at the moment. There are times gone past in recent seasons where you look at the Rangers squad and think it's a really poor squad. I don't think this on paper is a poor squad per se. It's not the best squad in the country, unfortunately, but it's not a poor squad. But we're just not getting the best out of it for whatever reason. And that's one of the most frustrating things.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. And I mean, it's still a squad that should be capable of brushing aside every team in Scotland except Celtic. And then, I mean, let's face it, on paper it should be that anyway. Rangers and Celtic should brush aside every team in Scotland anyway, and then the 4 Old Firm games should be just 4 individual games that should win or lose you the league. But we're not even going to get ourselves into a title race this season because we can't beat Aberdeen, Killie, Hearts, Dundee United. So
I suppose in terms of today, I do think the context is important. If this campaign had turned out differently and it was actually a really tight title race and we'd won on Thursday night and we come back with a really scrappy 1-0 win today, we'd all be really positive about it. We'd all be saying that's really good, a good sign that we're not playing well and scrapping these wins. These are the crucial wins that win you titles, blah, blah, if it was close. And the exact same performance when it's not close is, well, it's a bit shit, isn't it? The wider context is always important and is always going to inform the perspective. So from that today, we all wanted a carry-on performance from Thursday, a bit of suave, a bit of swagger, which we didn't really get. And that's a frustrating thing because it speaks to just a lack of consistency within the squad.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. We got more bad news after the game, sadly, about Cash and Weiro. We knew it was going to be a long-term injury, but his season's over, basically, let's be honest. 6 months, it's 46 months, so he might be back technically fit in 6 months, but then he'll have like IKEA furniture to build and, get him up to speed and all that, so he won't be playing for Rangers again, certainly this season. That is quite gutting because I think he came in and done really, really well. Really started that game left back at Malmo, but it was excellent. And I think pretty much any time he came in after that, he done well. And I was kind of hoping that long term he would have been Tav's replacement, but it's a long term injury. For me, he's not someone that we can take a risk on. Maybe another loan deal next year, but we can't be going out signing guys that have only played, probably 2 or 3 full games for us. When you add up all the minutes and spending that sort of money on them. We've done it with Cortez as well. Fingers crossed we can make something of that signing. But the real frustrating thing for me, Alan, is, the manager again, we heard them say when he came in he would resolve the injury issues. And it's just not happened. If anything, the injuries have got worse. And the thing that really sticks in the back of my throat is 2 of the guys that are out long term this season, Cass and Weiro and Cortez, are guys that he brought in. So it's not as if you can say, it's Ruth and Jack, like they were always injured before. That's how it is with him. These are guys that he signed as well, and they're still getting injured. And I get that bad luck can happen, at times, but my God, we seem to have the worst luck in the world when it comes to these things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a huge blow for us and for the player himself. I thought he looked really handy when he came in. Just a physical, athletic guy at the back. Just makes us look better. And, he's playing for Holland under 21s. He's obviously rated back in his homeland. Comes from the Ajax Academy, I think. So he's got good pedigree. But the crucial thing, Craig, to be honest, is if you look back at his injury history, he's had a couple of bad knee injuries before. And this is another one. So again, you feel for him on a personal level. But you're right, we just can't take the risk of signing a guy like that. Again, if it's another loan next season, then I'd be interested in it to see how he is. But we couldn't possibly take a risk on signing him full time at this juncture, or at the end of this season, I should say, because it's just too much of a risk. How much have we suffered over the past few seasons by having players injured at crucial times? We had to start probably the biggest game in our modern history in Seville with a right-sided midfielder essentially up front. And okay, he scored, don't get me wrong, but everyone looks back on that with such regret. If we had Morelos playing in that final, would it have been different? I think it might well have been, and that's just constantly cost us. We've gone into Old Firm games with kind of makeshift strikers up front as well recently. We started one, I think, with, Matondo up front, last season, and it was just difficult for us. We just need a fully fit squad to try and get the best out of it. Competition for places is really important. And we've just never really had that. Someone like Lawrence has spent basically the majority of his Rangers career injured, as has Cortez. And these are big signings. These are guys that we expect something from. And the guys that have shown us in wee fits and starts that they can contribute. But as soon as you put them on the treatment table, they're just completely ineffective. And even Danilo, Danilo has been unlucky. But at the end of this season, he's halfway through his contract. And how much have we really seen from him? How much has he had as a run? Even when he's been fit, he's struggled for starts. And then he's halfway through his contract. So you need to make a decision on him. You need to sell him, or you need to renew it. Or, it always puts us in a difficult position when you've got players with this level of injury that just can't contribute. Because not only giving us something on the pitch, we're also not adding to their value in terms of our player trading model. And you end up just with duds on long contracts that aren't contributing and not able to get you value in due course. So it's doubly frustrating. Now I see just tonight the press was saying that we're signing a physio from Aberdeen and he'll be joining us in the new year. So maybe that's the first step towards redoing the medical side of things and seeing where we get to with it. But we absolutely 100% need to try and get to the bottom of that, because we lose far too much value and far too much cash from players not able to contribute. And it's been a persistent problem for season after season now. I mean, let's think back. In fact, I knew I had another example in my head, but I'd obviously tried to bury this deep so I didn't have to refer to it. But that Champions League campaign under Van Bronckhorst, we ended it, I think, with Leon King and James Sands in centre-half. We had easily 4 or 5 centre-halves injured at the same time. I mean, it was just brutal, absolutely brutal. And it's no wonder we got horsed at points. So one of these days we need to have a little bit of luck on the injury front. But we just need to keep our fingers crossed and don't walk under any ladders or cross any black cats or all that kind of stuff,
Aye, don't jaywalk in the street either, because you never know what could happen. No, it is, but the thing is, and I mentioned luck earlier. Sometimes things do happen that you can't explain, and sometimes some things in life are down to luck. You might just have good luck, or you might just have bad luck. The problem with us is we seem to be always picking the guys that have the bad luck. But even then, it might be, not nice on a personal level, but you can't have these guys around, as harsh as that sounds. And they might be nice guys, and, they might contribute now and then, but at the end of the day, if you're just a generally unlucky person, I don't really want you at Rangers. We need to be more lucky sometimes. I'm a big believer in you make most of your luck, but we've not done ourselves any favours in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, you hate to look over there, but just look at the other side of the city. When was the last long-term injury they had longer than, say, 6 weeks?
Yeah. And even when they do, they've got an adequate replacement to come in. Yeah. If you look at even like Carter Vickers recently, he's been and
He was
the
out.
team with his injury, but they've got guys to come in. I think, although to be fair, like last season, you seen it, Callum McGregor goes out for like 3 or 4 weeks, and they were really bad. And that was at the point where we were really going for it, and I think
That's
we're
right.
going to win the league here. That's probably the only player that is maybe irreplaceable to them, I would say. But it
But
just
again, it's
shows you
that kind of, we're going to go into this cup final probably missing 4 or 5 players maybe.
yeah,
And they won't be missing any.
I
Unless
don't think they will.
something magic happens over the next few weeks, let's get our
I know.
voodoo dolls out. But they probably won't. They'll have a fully fit squad, whereas we'll be missing 4 or 5 players almost certainly. And that's just, it puts us in a difficult spot right from the start. It gives us a disadvantage right away before you look into form and quality on the pitch and all this kind of stuff. So, we need to give ourselves the best chance of delivering silverware, and that's with a fully fit squad. And I literally can't remember the last time we had a fully fit squad.
No. Probably the season we won the league, but even then, I think Orlando was out for about 6 months at that time as well. But
yeah,
so we've probably never had a fully fit squad. It's Rangers. We just seem to get on with it. But no, in terms of Riddles, don't worry. I'll have a word with a few of my contacts, and we'll see what we can do. Can't promise anything, but we'll have a go anyway. Got a game coming up in Wednesday, Alan Kelly at home. I hate playing Kilmarnock. It's always the worst games in the world against Derek McInnes. We'll see what happens to him in the next few months anyway, depending on how results go. But we know it's going to be a tough game. It always is against them. The team, Clemont's Rangers roulette, as Grant likes to call it. There will be changes because it's Philippe Clement and he always makes changes. If it was you personally, who would you like to see in the starting 11?
Well, certainly I'd let Hadji keep his place. I'd put Danilo in from the start. Probably bring Diamandi back in. Maybe give Barron a wee rest. I thought Barron looked a bit leggy today, if I'm honest. He's been good, but I'd maybe just give him a wee rest because it's a tough schedule. And I'd bring Balogun in at centre half as well. We don't know if Sterling's got a trapped nerve. Who knows how long that's going to be, but I presume he won't be back for Wednesday, so Tab will be back in. So yeah, maybe sort of Balogun, Hadji will keep his place, Diamandi comes back in, Danilo comes back in. I've got a slight temptation to rest Czerny as well. Again, I just thought he looked a wee bit tired today, but problem with that is, who do we got to replace him? Struggling a bit there, and he's important for us, so maybe he still wants to try and get at least 60 minutes out of him. But again, it speaks to the injuries. If we had Matondo and Cortez and Lawrence fit, you just got more options there to play around with, more systems to play around with. But we've been robbed of that, so we probably have to stick with these guys that are looking a wee bit tired. I'd rest Barami certainly. I think he thought he looked really tired today. And we've still got Igaman. Desos didn't get on today, so he might play a part on Wednesday. So there's options there, but just not as many as we would like. But we're definitely going to have to rotate a bit ahead of what's going to be a really tough period with Kelly at home and Ross County away, and then of course Spurs, Celtic. We really need to manage the squads properly and hope, touch wood, that there's no further injuries, because we want as many players fit for those upcoming games as possible.
Yeah, I forgot that technically tomorrow means it's going to be next week that those Spurs and Celtic games are, so that'll be exciting. And in terms of moving forward anyway, obviously the 2 league games, I actually think on paper our December league games are winnable. There we go, I've just cursed everything, but let's be honest, we should be winning them. We should be. We're not playing Hearts or Hibs or Celtic or Aberdeen. These are the sort of mostly bottom 6 teams that we're playing, so we should be winning these games.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that, the way that some of the fans are at the minute, Rangers right now, for them, it's just like disaster porn. Do you know what I mean? And I've never got on board with that. You should be getting some sort of enjoyment out of it. And I say we've won our last 2 games, one with a really, really good result Thursday night against a wave to a team in a top 5 league. We can't snip at that kind of stuff. There's something in this team, there's quality in this team somewhere. We need to hope it comes to the fore. If we can put Kelly to bed on Wednesday, we know one of Aberdeen or Celtic are dropping points because they're playing each other. So as long as we can win that, we're closing the gap somewhere. So we have to just go for it. You have to just go for broke And then if we can do that, close the gap. Aberdeen have dropped points again today. And then we've got Ross County away. It's a game we should be winning. They were an absolute shambles at Parkhead yesterday. So we should be winning that. And then, can we pull together a wee string of results before the big two that are real challenges? Spurs, again, I'm not massively fussed about it. I'm not expecting to win it. So anything we get would be a huge bonus. But then I've got the cup final, and the cup final is absolutely massive for this squad and this manager and this club. It's absolutely massive. So prior to that, before we turn to that, I know this is not the cup final preview show, but we just need to put together a wee run of games to get us that little bit of confidence, because it's absolutely imperative and will set the tone for the season. And that starts on Wednesday night. So why don't we just try and get a little bit of positivity about the team? I know it's not going to happen. You saw the reaction today, even on Twitter, some dumbasses are moaning, more or less, that Tav scored a goal. I know he didn't in the end, but when he did, they're immediately jumping on it. They're almost disappointed that he scored it. You know what I mean? Those guys can just get, I have no interest in a fan like that. The club always comes first, not your ego or your opinion. So we just need to be pleased that we got it over the line, and hopefully we can continue it into Wednesday night. Because Kelly are a tricky side. I don't think they're not having the best season. The Kenneth isn't having the best season either. So we shouldn't really have anything to fear from them. And if we turn up, we will win. We've got better quality than them. If we turn up, we'll win. And the fans have got a part to play in that. So everybody just needs to stop staring into the abyss, sitting in a dark basement, listening to My Chemical Romance and just being all an emo little wanker. Just get behind the team and actually support them for once,
That is difficult, but I don't really see the point in just being ultra negative all the time. I'd like to think I'm a bit of a positive person for the most part. I'll always try and see the good in things, and this has been a crap season, and I've always said as well, it's not been a sort of a rebuild, it's been a downsizing. But then there's always these people as well. It's like everyone said at the start of the season that this season was going to be rubbish, and then it's almost as if, oh, how dare you have a bad season, even though we all thought that we were all going to have a bad season anyway. So
a lot of the Rangers fans just aren't prepared for it. Do you know what I mean? It's they can't accept where we are at the moment. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not happy with where we are, and I don't think we're doing as best as we can. If we're 6 points behind the top in second place, it'd be a bit more palatable, because you think, right, okay, it's a rebuild, fine. There's still an outside chance. Again, the away form in particular has been really, really disappointing. But again, I think it all feeds into the fact that we know the squad's better than this. We know the squad's better than we're seeing. And that's what feeds the frustration. But the fans just have to grow up, and just learn, look, that frustration from the stands doesn't help. It just doesn't. So what are you actually trying to achieve here? It's very clear the manager is going nowhere in the short to medium term. So we just need to get behind the team. Because if we can all pull in the same direction, then that gives us a chance. It might only give us a 1% edge, but it's still 1% I'd rather have than not. So let's just try and do what we can.
Well, how many games have we lost to Celtic the last couple of years through 1%, them having maybe one better player, like one better striker, or, whatnot, when the games have been even. So that 1% is...
Or how many games have they won by having a Rangers goal disallowed?
Well,
you know what I mean? You can literally say it happens more often than not. So, the margins, although there've been some really poor performances, that Parkhead performance at the start of this season was bad. But there's also been games that have been really tight. Players that we've slated have made a real fist of it, and they've been really, again, they've been very, very close. Usually with a referee stepping in and making a decision that very few people would agree with and letting Celtic off the hook. So are we not due some luck in one of these fixtures now? Do you know what I mean? Are we not due it? Let's hope so. But as I say, it doesn't do anyone any good to be pessimistic. If you're not enjoying going to the football, if you're not enjoying going to these games, I'm going to just stay at home. Because I'm sick of hearing the moaning from the stands, if I'm honest. We all know where the limitations are, and we all get frustrated with it, and immediately after, in the face of a loss, we're all a bit depressed. Yeah, fine. But if you're not enjoying it, just stay at home. Do you know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear your moaning.
Stay at home, save lives, protect the Rangers supporters.
Yeah, that's a good. I can picture you, Craig, behind a podium with that logo in the front of it, preaching to the nation.
Well, I'm a good liar, so I'd be good at that as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you already have a massive Union Jack behind you somewhere, so jobs are good.
Exactly. Exactly, and my wee Imperial map as well, just cutting about as also. All I will say lastly is thank God this isn't a cup final preview, because I've done 2 cup final previews for Celtic games and I've been beaten both of them. Although you never know, third thing could be the charm. So
I don't know if we should jinx. I don't know if we should take that chance though, if I'm honest.
no, neither do I. Frank, I don't even know if I'm on the cup final preview on, but just don't put me on it for the sake of the club.
Yeah, agreed. If the High Hegians are watching, that's a decision made, I feel.
Aye. And if anybody wants to blame me if we get beaten in the cup final, feel free to. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite used to getting blamed for a lot of things, so it's what Rafa Duck's back to me. But no, I've enjoyed that tonight, Alan. It's been a good discussion. Try and be a wee bit positive, but all we can do is sort of march on and keep going. And it's 2 wins in a week, so let's try.
I'll completely caveat that with, if I'm asked back on this pod after the Kilmarnock game and we've not won it, I will be an absolute mourning-faced bastard, and then a complete hypocrite. So I know it's coming, but as of tonight, let's be positive. It's a big month ahead. It's Christmas. It's the season of miracles. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, I know. Season of miracles. We might score 2 goals in a league game on Wednesday. You never know. Too far. No, but thanks very much, Alan, for joining. Thanks to the audience as well at home. We're obviously live on YouTube tonight. As I said earlier, you can get us on all of your usual podcast providers and the coming hours as well. It'll be Rob and Alan, yourself on Friday. So hopefully that bodes well when you're not coming in all morning and you're still as positive as you are tonight. But thanks guys for watching at home, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.